Ed's nominations for Fight of the Year. Uh,
Are you doing it as my number five, your number five, your number four, my number four, like that?
no, no,
Probably.
no. We're just you're gonna give your top four, and then your number one pick will be also there.
Have you got my list? Because I think I'm gonna have to go on Twitter and
Yeah, and I got your list right here. So
yeah, yeah.
you went with number five. I was a little surprised with the number five one, Renat versus Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one?
Do you know what it was? I know fight of the years tend to be like 15-minute scraps and decisions. I thought, considering that fight lasted a minute, it was
Uh-huh.
quite a mental fight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You watch that and you think that this isn't gonna last 15 minutes, but it was like two like monster trucks like running into each other. Like I don't know if
Mhm.
you Americans have like fairs and you've got like bumper cars and you drive around and you're hitting other people. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
don't know. Do you have that sort of thing in America, like bumper
yeah,
cars?
yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, it felt like that from start to finish. I know it was a minute for a fight, but I thought it was a really good fight. If I'm honest with you, and
yeah,
I felt like maybe this is quite the common theme throughout my like picks and my across my tier lists and everything else. But I really struggled with a lot of the categories this year compared to last year. Like I personally don't think 2025 was a good year for MMA for a number of different reasons.
well,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I think it was you had a lot of weird fights. I do agree, but yeah,
we did have a lot of weird fights, weird circumstances. Everything was up in the air. It just felt like the second half, they just, particularly when we got the Paramount deal, it was like, right, they're not even going to try anymore.
yeah,
And they're
no,
just going to save all of their big guys for like Paramount, particularly the first 3 or 4 pay-per-views, or like, particularly the first quarter of the year.
yeah,
And it did feel like that. And us as fans, we really felt like that. And obviously, the whole thing about they've basically made what, 3 or 4 guys vacate their belts to fight for a second belt. So it was like Zhang vacated, Islam vacated, Ilya vacated, and then we had a lot of these like nonsensical fights like Max and Dustin that headlined the pay per view. I get it, it's Dustin's last dance, he's in Louisiana, all of that stuff, but we couldn't have had a title fight on top of that. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean, well, I feel like personally, like it's weird. Like this year, I felt like we were just kind of waiting for the big fights that just never
Pretty
happened.
much. And they
Right?
just never happened.
Yeah, like I,
Because at the start of the year, we definitely waited for John Jones and Tom. It didn't happen. He
yeah,
retired. Then we got Then we got Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. We waited till October for that fight, I believe, and then that fight came around. Tom's been on ice for what 18 months, 2 years at the most, and then the eye poke happened, and you're like, oh fuck, this is annoying, and
yeah.
it did feel like in a lot of ways,
Well, and then obviously like Islam and Tuporia, right?
yeah, that didn't happen. We had Armin Sarukin at the start of the year pull out of the fight, and then Islam fought Moicano. So it was. I'll be honest. It was a bit like we got our hopes up, and then we got a bit. I feel like they've disappointed us this year. I know that sounds harsh, but I do really feel like they've disappointed us because
Well,
everything was in their hands.
yeah. It was weird. Like honestly, like, and I do think, you know, okay, so like for me personally, I felt like we had a lot of great fights, but things that overperformed, in my opinion, were a lot of the fight nights and some of the pay per views. I feel like you look at a lot of these scraps, right? At least two of your scraps. Right? Number four was Jeremy Stevens versus Mason Jones. Your
I
number
really like that fight from a
your
pacing
number
perspective.
your number three slot was Sadikov versus
Mata.
yeah, whatever that clown's
Yeah.
name, turtle, Ninja Turtle looking guy. Those two fights are from fight nights. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can tell like this year, like that usually wouldn't like last year. If you looked at our list last year, I'm pretty sure most of it were from pay per views because usually pay per views have the better scraps. It's just a god honest truth, you know. And that just tells you something, right? And then your number two slot was Joshua Van,
I'm
and
sure. I think a lot of people had it as number one for
yeah,
fight. But I feel
yeah.
like that because that was a relatively recent fight. I feel like that would have swayed people. So I was like, yeah, and I just felt like number one was like, oh my fucking god, like I
Yeah,
don't know.
year was Khalil Ranchi versus Yuri Prohaska.
Yeah,
I agree necessarily with this being a great fight. I remember watching it live, just feeling like Khalil was gonna lose, and he did his big one by falling on his face. So I enjoyed that. So
I
for sure,
I also think
expand on-
I think some people had him 2 up on the scorecard, but visibly his face was damaged, and it's just like it's weird, man, because we've got a Yuri now who learns how to throw a jab, who's learned how to move his head, and yet the fights were still messy as fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
push comes to shove, he just decided to be a warrior in there and just throw.
yeah,
And then the left hand as well. I was just like, wow, like he's got this ability to do that to people. And it's like obviously, I know the Braves was a spin elbow, but just the way these guys face plan. There was one knockout I wanted to bring up in it. I know people would have had Saar killed in their list. I felt that was relatively a recent fight.
Yeah.
Vallejos, I love the Vallejos knockout because of how violent it was. But I
yeah.
didn't put that in my list because I felt like recency bias was taking over. But it was just and there was the South Korean guy when he face planted that schmuck. That was a good
Yeah.
knockout.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, no, those are pretty solid.
Right, there would have been my honourable mentions if I'm honest. But honestly, generally speaking, it sounds weird, but again, I didn't have that many knockouts in my head that I thought, wow, like these should have been top 5.
Yeah,
Because a lot of them
hey,
were like
did you have any honorable mentions for fights of the year or no?
fights of the year.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, this is fights of the year. Sorry, shit, knockouts is a different.
but no, this was a great. It ended off with a great.
It was a great fight. Do you know what? Do you believe it or not? Do you know what my honorable mention was? Merab and Umar.
Yeah. No,
Merab and Umar was my honorable mention.
Okay,
I feel like people will. I feel like everyone will go, "Oh my god, that's a fucking grappling fight! What a shit fight that was!"
Yeah.
But it was actually a very good fight.
Yeah, no,
it exceeded my
100%
expectations as a fight. If I'm honest with you, it exceeded my expectations as a fight. So I thought, because I very much thought it was like someone's going to get 50-45 and look stupid, and you're going to see somebody just getting hugged for like 5 rounds, and it's going to be against the fence, knees against the thigh, people trying to work inside trips and trying to like work underhooks and all this kind of stuff. And I really thought there was going to be a lot of stalling, but there really wasn't. So.
Yeah, no, it was high paced, man. It was very reminiscent of an Armin versus Gamrot, but yeah, no, I 100% agree. I do respect that. So I'm gonna give. I like your number 1 pick. I really did. It's not my number 1 pick personally. But I do like yours because
it was weird because a few of my fights ended in finishes.
Yeah.
So like usually like people like fights. They go, oh my god, this was a 15-minute or a 25-minute scrap. I just felt like this year there wasn't a lot to go off. If I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see your list because you might jog my memory and think, oh fuck, I didn't think of that fight.
So I did have an honorable mention. Actually, it was I think Esteban Ribovics versus Elvis or Elvis Brenner. That was a really good scrap. I wanted to add it, but I was like, nah, I don't know if it really makes my criteria. But this was my top 5. A lot of title fights though. I added. So at number 5, I went with JDM.
You made it a casual list. That's what.
No. So I'll explain why my list is a little different from your list. I went with more of the highest level of technicality.
Yeah. I like your list though. There's 2 that I've mentioned and my honorable mention, so we were kind of along the same lines.
Yeah. So I went with number 5. Me personally, another honorable mention was Merab versus Peter Yan, but it was a little too like. It's a little biased, but it was. I was for sure.
25 minutes and had to say it again, didn't he?
You know what I'm saying? But I was too hyped. But I like. I'm a big on technicality versus skill and just certain things where I was like, man, that was really neat. I liked how he did that. I liked how he stopped that. And I added JDM here versus Bilal Muhammad because this was actually like a pretty competitive fight. And the last round, and specifically round 5, was really one of my favorite rounds of the year because there's a moment in this fight where you see Bilal Muhammad get a big takedown, and it's almost reminiscent of Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev first fight where he gets up and he starts beating on him, right? And I just loved how he was able to scramble up and just really punish Bilal. And obviously seeing Bilal get beat up is pretty good too. So that's also another reason why I had to add this. I really wanted to add the Elvis fight, but I couldn't really justify it in terms of like watching this live. It was just it was, to me, it was one of those all-time great performances. It didn't beat the Peter Yan performance, but in terms of how back and forth it was, Bilal, he did hold his own in some striking exchanges. I will give him that. But I just love how on a technical basis, JDM figured him out, broke him down, and eventually had that moment where he showcased that he was a better fighter in the 5th round when it was 2-2. So I really kind of it's one of those performances where like it's probably gonna get forgotten to a certain degree. It's very like, to me, it's reminiscent of Robbie Lawler versus Johnny Hendricks, the rematch. Like it reminds me of that. But like if you're like a really true fan of the sport, this does. I mean, people really picked him to beat Islam based on this performance, and it does hold a special place in my heart. So I really did enjoy it.
That really hurt me in my prediction, You know when we predicted the champs of last year, in my head, because obviously we'll go back on that list later. In my head, I'm like, technically they held the belt at some point this year. Like Giacomo did win the belt at 170, so I was right. I just didn't know.
No, well, the game, that's the hard part. The game isn't necessarily about getting it right. It's to see if they, last the whole year.
It's like in my head, I didn't think he'd fight Islam at the end of the year. That's the annoying thing. I genuinely thought that Bilal and Shavkat would have happened, and then either of those fights, like JDM would have fought in the back end of the year, and then he would have beat the winner. That was kind of how I thought about it. But it annoys me though. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
I didn't think Islam and Ilya would both vacate their belts, which was annoying. So I lost 2 championships based off of that alone. Makayev didn't come back in the UFC. That was my outside pick. That was a bit stupid. But I always make a stupid pick every year. Don't I? Like last year, I think last year I predicted Aljo to win the belt at 45, didn't I?
Yeah.
And he just didn't fight for the belt. So, but it is what it is. But yeah, no, I like your fights. They're very similar to
obviously I went with Sadikov, Mota. That was amazing. I remember watching that live. I was just in shock. Those guys really went to a really dark place. And Sadikov, he obviously he took an L at the last pay-per-view, but he had to really go to a place where he had to take damage, had to cover up. And then I liked how he overcame adversity and broke Mota. And obviously he's super slick. He is very he has some really nice skills, and he got to showcase it against a guy that is a more, I don't want to say like Muay Thai heavy, but he's very like high guard heavy, and he was able to really let go some awesome combinations. And then obviously Yuri versus Khalil, that was an amazing fight. I thought the way Yuri kind of was able to bypass Khalil's, and I think the problem with Khalil in the matchup was that Khalil's offense was a lot better than his defense, but his offense through a 15-minute fight was not better than Yuri's offense, which is kind of crazy to say. On a technical basis, yeah, Khalil is the better striker, but when you have to be defensively sound and give Yuri punishing strikes to be effective. That's how, in my opinion, Alex Pereira won those fights. Was the fact that Yuri had good offense, but it was his superior defense.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminds me of though? Like I'm sure because you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you'll understand this. It's like when Vegeta fights the androids the first time round. Like obviously he's got the offense and the firepower, and obviously he's got like the power boost, he's a Super Saiyan, all this shit.
Yeah,
but then the androids are just was able to withstand damage, and the durability is just there. At some point, you're like, "Fuck!" Now they're about to hit me, and I've got nothing left. That's kind of what it's like with Yuri in these fights. Like it just outlasts them. And that's half the battle.
Yeah. So and then at number 2, I went with Umar and Merab. The reason why I kind of went with that one is because it was so shocking to me to see what Merab did to a guy like Umar. Even though it was a great scrap, Umar looked really great those first 2 rounds. Just to see the the snowball effect of the cardio and the gas tank going down, and just seeing how he kept etching and kept attacking that hole of grappling, and he just kept going and going to the same area until he broke down. And to me, that in itself is what Umar is really great at. Now, not Umar, but Merab is really great at. And Merab had a lot of great performances, but this one, I think this one's gonna. When we look back at his career, this is when, in my opinion, he became an all-time great. Beating a guy like that, who's held at such a high regard.
I find it crazy though, because I still felt like, particularly in that fight, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I obviously predicted Merab to end the year as the 135 champ at.
Yeah, and you predicted for him to beat Umar, which was
But
very.
for me, like, people see this as one of his most impressive wins, but it's like, for me, I was like, he's still relatively unproven. Like, if his name wasn't Nurmagomedov, I don't think he'd be seen in this regard. Like, even his last performance out was against Mario Batista. Yeah, he won like 30-27, but I still felt in certain elements of he looked really dodgy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not really, like, I understand one day he will win the belt. I don't doubt in my mind that he won't win, or he won't touch the gold. But it's like,
Well, I think
he's not that guy yet. He's a guy. He's not that guy.
no, I think what you're saying is as a contender in the
So
top
much room for
five.
him to grow, and this
Yeah,
is
no, I think what you're really getting at, and you might not be just saying it, is the experience. I think as a contender, he's green in that moment. I mean, if you look at his body of work, I mean, it was what Ronnie Barcelos and Corey Sanhagen, and then the Kagastani kid, right?
the guy from Kazakhstan, yeah, which was an interesting fight in itself. But like, for me, like, I just felt like the way he was looked at was quite, I don't know, man. Like, people put him on this pedestal. Like, even at the press conference, they had, you know how the champions sit on the left of the press conferences.
Yeah,
They sat him on the same side as Islam Makhachev.
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's great.
Like, yo, that's so fucking rude. Like,
Yeah,
I get it, they're boys and whatnot, but Merab is the champion. Don't put him in the fucking blue corner and make him look like an idiot. Like, this is your champion that you're supposed to market and promote. Like, it just reminded me of when Dana was glazing Francis and saying Ford escort this, he hits like that and all this shit, and it's just like, then he just dropped Francis like a hot potato, like when he lost the fight, and it's like, it was just a bit weird, if I'm honest with you, like, just how they just went about it, if I'm honest with you.
yeah.
Like, don't do shit like that, bro. Like, there's one way to like make your champions look stupid. They've done stuff like that to Woodley for years. Like, I remember the MSG card. They just casually, like, he had the fight of his life, and they just took his belt and wait. Do you know what? We need the second belt for Connors because we haven't got another belt. And they had Connor like running around the cage with Tyron Woodley's belt. I don't think people know that, but
I do remember that. Yeah, you're right.
That's crazy to me, bro. Like, this guy's the champion from the weight class above. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
they do that a lot to some of their champions.
Yeah, so with my number one pick, I kind of went. I ended up going with a fight that I saw live personally, and that is Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval. This fight in particular, the reason why I said it was my fight of the year. It's because not only did I pick Joshua Van, I was so. I don't want to say anti-Royval. Royval is a really good fighter. I don't want to be a hater right now, but
even what happened to him the other week.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, but no, I just always felt like this guy's defense would be his downfall, and I just love how Joshua Van was able to exploit that. Now, Van had some problems with the length, and I think he stayed in the pocket a little too long, but I think it took him, he needed like 2 rounds to really figure him out. If it was a 5-round fight, I think he would have got him out of there eventually. But I just loved that last sequence, like being there live. Everyone was on their feet and they're going back and forth, and he gets the final knockdown. Yeah. I thought that was clean. I always love like emphatic kind of moments where like, okay, I won. This is my moment. I'm the winner, you know? And I thought he really proved that. And that was my fight of the year personally. Yeah. This is a great scrap. And
it was a good fight. Yeah, honestly, I was tempted to put it number one as well. I couldn't separate this one, but I think we had, our list was so similar. That just goes to show like there wasn't like a massive pool of fights to pick from in terms of what we would have as our top 5.
Yeah.
I was worried this was going to be the section that we would be like miles apart on, but you know what? I'm quite surprised.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, we weren't that that different. For sure, like we had
Ribovic fight and the Brenner fight I thought about, but then everyone would have gone, that fight was so long ago, I can't remember how that fight went. But the Renat one was quite It was quite an interesting pick because people don't pick 1 minute fights as like.
I mean, it was a great 1 minute scrap. I will give you that. It was a great 1 minute scrap.
Honestly, it was literally like it's like that Eminem lyric, man, where a tornado meets a volcano and all that shit. It was just like crashed into it was mental. But I wish I had picked a better fifth. But other than that, I was tempted. Like I said, Merab and Numan was my honorable mention. So.
Yeah. So let's get down to the knockout.